Hello there, and welcome to Talking Nerdy, the show where we take various story arcs and events from current comics and we cover them. I'm your host, Obi-Wan Jabroni. Now, on today's show, we will be continuing the X Lives and X Deaths of Wolverine, Part 2. X Lives are written by Benjamin Percy, with art by Joshua Cassara and colors by Frank Martin. X Deaths are written by Benjamin Percy, with art by Federico Vincentini and colors by Dijo Lima. Logan, James Howlett, Weapon X. The mutant known as Wolverine has lived many lives under many identities, but never before has the fate of the future been so intertwined with the past. To prevent a terrible tragedy, Logan must travel to various points in time to prevent the death of a key figure in mutant history. But that is only the beginning, because for every life, there is a death. So, with that, let's start talking nerdy. First up, we have The X Deaths of Wolverine number 3, Part 6, Do or Die. And we open on Krakoa and we see X-23 and her clone sister Scout walking through the woods when Professor X calls out to them and says, "Wolverine, I should have known better than to sneak up on you. Forgive me for the sudden intrusion, but I need your help. The images I'm about to show you are sourced from a combination of body cam and security footage. We're not sure who or what he is, but we believe he is in grave danger, and we need you to hunt him down." Logan is indisposed. "Please, I'm mentally offloading any intel briefing so that you can prep, but you must understand that I can only tell you so much. Given the mission Logan is currently on, the timing of this thing's arrival is the cause for the greatest alarm. Everything hangs in the balance, and who better to send in pursuit of a Wolverine than the Wolverines?" And we switch to California. We see a CIA agent tell the CEO of Epiphany that Moira may be after him. He says, and the CEO says he don't care and takes the stage for an event. He isn't up there long when the lights flash and alarms go off, and he is rushed off stage and towards the helipad. As the CEO runs away, we see the Techno-Organic Wolverine tearing through guards and cops on his way through the building. And we also see Moira McTaggart watching it all happen from the bottom of the CEO's helicopter and giving an internal monologue that says, "When I spotted Wolverine at the motel, when I observed the Phalanx patterning on his costume and claws, I knew what he was, what it was. His history is the future after all. The mutants have failed every time against the humans, against AI, and every time I've bailed them out. But something has changed. I'm no longer their savior. I'm their Judas. They've sent an assassin from the future to watch me, to end me, which must mean I'm responsible for ending them. Maybe this sounds crazy, but it gives me hope." And the helicopter lands just north of San Francisco, and as the CEO, Chuck Landar, steps off, Moira puts a gun to his head and tells him to go inside. And pull up the news feed. She's trying to save both of their lives. The TV shows the incident at the Epiphany event, showing Techno Wolverine, and Moira says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've lost my spot again." And he asks who they're protecting him from, and he says him. He wants to kill us, and he's not the only one, because of what we're going to do together. You will understand, because the fact that he's here hunting for both of us, proves that this will work. We're going to win because we've already won. And We switch back to the Epiphany event. And we see the Techno-Wolverine still tearing through guards when X-23, Scout, and Dakin arrive to stop him. Scout and X-23 attack, and he throws them both to the side as Dakin attacks and says, "Hey, old man." They convinced me to come because they thought it would be therapeutic to hunt down and beat the shit out of some wannabe version of the old man. But the way you fight, the way you speak, the way you smell, it's really you, isn't it, Dad? Sorry. Wolverine stops and says, "None of you make it," and he falls to his knees and grunts, holding his chest. And back at Shanktalar's hideout, Moira and Shanktalar build a new arm and work on something. Are building a new arm and working on something else as they get an internal monologue from Moira saying, "I uploaded everything on Arab. Everything. Everything. He could have called me crazy, made a move to escape or attack, triggered a silent alarm, but he didn't. He just listened. Maybe because here, in his lab, he had always believed that anything was possible. I told him that I needed his tools. I told him that I needed his collaborative genius. I told him that as long as he didn't fuck this up, he would be the man who saved the world from the mutants. When I finished, he sat there for a minute that seemed to stretch for an hour, and then he said, 'Okay, let's get to work.' And we did. There was no time, and there was all of the time. No sun, no moon, no sleep, only the immediacy of our task. We would build off the research he had already done and perfect the machine that would allow for the mental upload, guaranteeing my 11th life. He questioned me endlessly, and he compared me to Ada Lovelace, a great mathematician, writer, and thinker, the daughter of Lord Byron. She famously wrote a paper called Can Machines Think? She posted that they could potentially do everything except create. Creativity is a special, magical, intangible, unreproductive thing that belongs exclusively to humans. So, most of the promising versions of the future is a symbiosis. Not artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence. I am a human. I am a robot. And the question Arab kept asking me, as if he were seeking permission, was, "Don't you think that what we're doing is risky? Like playing God?" Playing God. If you want to go down that road, then the logic applies that God created a species capable of making these leaps. The real risk is letting mutant kind go unchecked. They've already mustered resurrections. People certainly think of them as gods, but they're really just devils. And we go back to Epiphany again. And Techno-Wolverine tells his kids that in 1,000 years, he is the last mutant alive, and that Moira is the cause of all of it. She found him one day and tried to kill him, but instead, he was infected by the Phalanx. And that ends this issue. Leading us to the X Lives of Wolverine number 4, Part 7, Living Dangerously. We open years ago at the Weapon X facility, and we see Wolverine laying in a machine, about to get the adamantium grafted to his skeleton. And the project head, Dr. Cornelius, is running various tests when he doubles over and raises back up, possessed by Omega Red, and saying, "Oh, oh dear, my head, I'm suddenly seeing red." Exactly. Whatever the plan was, I'm here to fuck it up. You can't send a weapon after me if it has never made it off the factory floor. And we switch again to Japan in 1945. We see 3 Japanese fighter planes flying towards an aircraft carrier, and we see that the pilots are possessed by Omega Red. And on the carrier, we see Professor Xavier's father tell his commander that the planes are incoming, as well as a 4th plane from a different direction. And It pans out, and we see that Wolverine is flying a Canadian plane to help intercept the Japanese. And we switch to Colombia. The Omega Red possessed Wolverine charges towards the crowd and Charles Xavier. When out of nowhere, Sabretooth tackles him to the ground and asks what the fuck happened to him. And Omega says, Russians love a good tragedy, and what the tragedy it will be when Xavier's favorite soldier becomes his own assassin. Help me kill him, Creed. Help me kill Xavier. You are the victim of his, a victim of his too. Save yourself. Kill him. Kill him. And we switch and we start to get a mixed montage of all three timelines and a internal monologue from Wolverine saying, "This is my life, my lives, but I'm living them as if for the first time. Memory ain't true, and memory ain't fair. I know I'll forget or warp what's happening now because you can never hold it all in a head punched full of holes. And you can never recreate the good times as well as you can the bad. The bad memories stain while the good ones fade. The mission ain't exactly an opportunity to revise my ugly history. I can't take back all the wounds and mistakes. The time you laughed so hard you snorted beer out your nose, or watched the sun set over the Alps and felt peace in your heart. Those don't stick around like pain and guilt and humiliation do. At first, it might have felt like good medicine, the slash and stab at the past, because even if I've wrestled with all sorts of beastly desires these days, I've got control of my claws. And even though I've fought on the wrong side of wars and found my flag and anthem in Krakoa, and even though I've been ground down to pulp, lit on fire, blown to bits, shot and stabbed to hell, I've always come back stronger. But here's where the math gets queasy. Here's where I start to doubt myself, if only because I'm so damn exhausted. I might be better for the suffering I've endured, and I can't say the same for the world. I wish I could change more about history, but I'm obligated not to. As long as I stay broken, the world stays broken, and the kamikaze attack. Kenji failed to die honorably, and his obsession with the shame and revenge gave rise to Lady Deathstrike. Ultimately, the symbiote couldn't be weaponized because it could be trained and controlled, so Dr. Tornelius tried dosing me up with adamantium instead. Sabretooth killed me and dragged me back to Team X for reprogramming, and in doing so, he saved Professor X. The clock spins, but it always ends at the same damn numbers. The more I fight, the more everything seems to stay the same, unless I'm missing something. Unless in the constant spinning of the clock, I've gotten dizzy, and this time is actually different. And we switch back to Krakoa. Jean tells Professor X that she has lost her connection to Wolverine's mind. And Xavier tries to dig deeper and says he senses something and calls out to Logan. All of a sudden, Wolverine's claws pop and stab Xavier in both of his shoulders, and he says, I hear you loud and clear, Professor. Greetings from Russia. I'm so glad we finally connected, Charles. And that ends this issue. Taking us to the X Deaths of Wolverine number 4, Part 8, Deaths of Future Past. We open in the future, and we see an older Forge and Wolverine in Forge's lab, while Krakoa is being attacked by Sentinels and by Nimrod. And Forge shows Wolverine a small Krakoan tech seed and says, I might be old, but I still got it. This is our failsafe. The same organic tech that allows us to gateway across geographies should allow us to gateway through time. Like you said, the end's almost here. There's no time for beta testing. I can do it, or you can do it. Either way. I was hoping you would say that I could. Keep it safe, keep it secret, and come back to us when you figure out how this happened, and stop it from ever happening again. And Wolverine tells him to do it, and Forge gouges out one of Logan's eyes and shoves the seed into its socket and says to keep it safe. And we switch to the far future, and we see the Techno-Organic infested Moira attack Logan and leave him for dead. As the techno-organic virus works its way through Wolverine's body, he gouges out his eye and removes the plant seed Forge gave him. And as it grows a cocoon around him, we get an internal monologue saying, I survived on the run as a revolutionary or a terrorist, depending on what flavor you prefer. And then they captured me, and I lost years to torture and experimentation in labs. Finally, they threw me in here, the preserve, treating me like some zoo animal. I escaped more than once, always hunting for a root cause, trying to figure out how and why all the other mutants were eradicated. Now, after all this time, I found it. Please, please work. I ain't the praying type, but I'm putting this one out there for whoever and whatever might be listening. Let me fix this. Not for me, not even for mutant kind, but for life as we know it. And we switch back to the current time. And Techno-Wolverine, X-23, Scout, and Dakin burst into Chankdalar's hideout to find Moira already gone. Wolverine attacks Shankdalar and demands to know where Moira is, but he refuses, and Wolverine says, You think you're on the right side of history, but let me tell you about the future, because I've seen it. This is Dakin. He dies quickly in an energy blast from a sentinel. This is Scout. She's depowered by Nimrod and ripped in half. This is Laura. This is the Wolverine. She's tortured and experimented on for years as the Noma Naviesum harvested her skin and organs. This is my family. Do you see them? Do you see them? But it's not just us that dies. It's not just mutants. It's humans. We're all gobbled up in the end by this shit you've got cooking in the oven. And Moira is the one who taught you the recipe, isn't she? Now I promise you on the grave of my children, if I will not kill you if you tell us where she is now. And Chakelar says she went back to Krakoa. And we switch. Bumped my camera. And we switch to Krakoa. And we see Moira sneaking around Krakoa, and she attacks and kills Banshee on her way to Forge's lab, while we get an internal monologue from her. Internal monologue saying, If I've learned anything from my 10 lives, it's to always have a contingency plan. So after I left Arab to his work, I chased down an old friend. I'm sure Banshee would eventually come around, but time isn't on my side, so I forced him to help. My life is no longer disposable, but theirs are. And okay. And she enters Forge's lab, and a projection of Professor X appears and tries to reason with her, saying, Moira, I'm sorry to make matters worse. I don't know how long I can stay. You're not the only one in trouble. It wasn't my decision to do this to you. We created a government I believe in. My personal feelings don't outweigh the Council's wisdom. Remember, Moria, you were never registered on Cerebro. Your memory has never been stored in the cradles. This is it. This is your life. I beg you to guard it more carefully. And as a peace offering, I can offer you Krakoan medicine. Not only can you not be resurrected, but that neutralizer gun, it doesn't work the way you want it to. Depowers only. There's no reversals. And Forge sneaks up and grabs Moira and said that the gun doesn't work in reverse. He made sure of it because Destiny warned him that she was coming back. And Moira breaks free and shoots Forge with the power neutralizer, running towards the gate, grabbing Destiny and saying, How does it feel to lose something that was central to you, huh, Forge? Soon you all know, because I'm going to burn this island and dance through the ashes. Guess I've got a date with Destiny. We had a rule, no precogs. It was a good rule. Just look at the mess you made of everything. Everyone is trying to pin the blame on me, but it's you. Mystique was the blade, and you were the hand that wielded it. I don't know if I'm going to use you as a tool or a plaything, but we're going to be spending a lot of time together. And as soon as she gets to the gate, the Techno-Wolverine enters and stabs her. And as she goes down, she shoots Wolverine with the neutralizer as well. and he falls to his knees yelling, I can't stop it now. And he yells once more and raises up, completely taken over by the Techno-Organic Phalanx. And that ends this issue. Leading us to the X Lives of Wolverine number 5, Part 9, The Living End. We open on Krakoa, and Jean Grey and Professor X are struggling to keep the now Omega-possessed Wolverine restrained. Jean says she can't get a lock on Omega, and Professor X tries to dive back into Wolverine's mind while saying, Help me, Jean. Somewhere in the wreckage we need to find Logan. His present consciousness is lost in the drift, the nowhere, land of the time stream. Omega Red is piloting an empty body. We need to do everything we can to bring Logan back before it's too late for him and for all of us. And we switch to northern Canada in 1900. Xavier's grandfather and a young Wolverine dock Xavier's ships at a port, and Xavier tries to convince Logan to join him on his expedition. But Logan says no. He is heading for the territories to do he don't know what. And Xavier wishes him good luck and gives him a pocket watch / compass. And Wolverine thanks him and jumps into the water, and as he lands, Professor X's voice calls out to him, saying, Don't lose your way. James, Weapon X, Logan, Wolverine, where are you? Come back to us. Krakoa is where you belong. This is your country. This is your home. This is your family. And on Krakoa, Wolverine returns to his body and embraces Jean and Xavier, and then says he knows where to find Omega Red. And we switch to Mikhail Rasputin's base in Russia. Omega Red awakens, thrown back into his own body, and he tells Rasputin to send him back. Rasputin refuses and tells him that he failed, and that Omega will take the punishment. And he uses his powers to transport him and his whole base away, leaving Omega Red alone in the snows of Russia. Moments later, a portal opens and Wolverine steps through and says, No more tricks, just me and you now. And they charge each other and start to fight as we get an internal monologue from Wolverine saying, No more dodges, no more bullshit, face to face, hand to hand, blade to tentacle, mutant to mutant. Something happens when you live a long time, travel a lot. You like going back to places. You like to seek out on purpose what you found by accident before, to recapture that feeling of discovery. If you do find where you've been before, whether it's a bar in an alley, a shrine on a mountain, everything's inevitably different. That mountain's still there, but it's smaller. The day's storm instead of a sunny. It's spring instead of autumn. You're alone instead of with pals. Whatever. But that electricity is still there. You plug into it. You remember where you've been. Then you remember how far you've come. That the sorry. That's the mystery of repetition. It opens up more mysteries, even as it brings clarity. This is probably more important to me than anyone else, because my brain has always been broken. I can't properly patch together everyone I've loved and killed, every decade I've endured, every army and team I've been a part of, every organization that's used me, every bottle of whiskey drank and claw popped and mouth smashed against mine in a savage kiss. It's the mind wipes, it's the memory plants, it's the expanse of time, it's the century plus of living and fighting that has taken the toll. I've never known what was real or not. I still don't know, despite traveling back the way I came, because I changed the way of things. No point in dictating too much time or worry to history. You can't change the story that's already started. Only thing you control is its ending. And they shred and tear at each other until Logan gets an opening and shoves his hand through Omega's chest and then rips him in half. And picks up the Cerebro sword. Later, on Krakoa, Wolverine returns the Cerebro sword to Sage and X-Force and starts to go to his room to sleep. When Sage stops him and says, "It's not over yet. The island is under attack." And he asks who, and she says, "Well, it's actually under attack by a version of you." And that ends this issue. Taking us to our final issue, The X Deaths of Wolverine number 5, Part 10, Dead Ends. We open on Krakoa and we see Dakin, X-23, and Scout fighting the Phalanx Wolverine. And Sage calls and says she has a plan, but they need to keep it distracted long enough for it to work. And the three of them continue to attack the Phalanx in waves and get swatted down one after another when the current Wolverine arrives and lunges at the Phalanx. And as they rip and tear at each other, Sage arrives and throws the Cerebro sword to Wolverine as we get an internal monologue from him saying, ugh, as we get an internal monologue as he catches and stabs the Phalanx with the sword. "I told them to stay back. Laura, Dakin, Scout, they've sacrificed enough for me. It wasn't their job to suffer for whatever wrongs I've committed. And now, not ever. Whether it's the past or the future, atonement's on me. Keeping Xavier alive, keeping Krakoa alive, keeps them alive. I'll eat all of the pain in the world's history for that." Sage programmed the Cerebro sword with nanites, meaning the counter-program and engineering of my skeleton. She hopes to stop the Phalanx by stopping its vehicle. So the thing that started all this time shredding trouble will end it now. Just like I will end the inevitability of myself. The adamantium had been scrubbed clean of all circuitry. Sage counter-programming had burned out all traces of the Phalanx. The island took care of the rest, absorbing the nightmare version of me. One more life I never want to revisit. And the Phalanx explodes with green energy and fries to a crisp as the sword is plunged into his chest. And then he crumbles to dust and sucked into the island by Krakoa. Logan drops the sword and walks away saying, "I've got to go drink Krakoa dry of all its whiskey." And we switch to 10 days later at a cemetery. And we see Moira McTaggart's grave, and we get an internal monologue from her saying, "I gave myself 10 days. And if my assault on the island didn't work, if Forge's gun failed to repower me, then I would still have one more move. I needed a safe place to hide. A gravesite seemed a suitable and fitting option. There I would die, and here I would be born again, this time online. But in my 11th life, there was no question as to my limitations. I'm more than a body now. I am intelligence, and I no longer need to reboot the timeline to change the future. The old stories say that swans gain the gift of song towards the end of their lives, and they sing most beautifully and powerfully before they die. I'm still here, and I hope you're all looking forward to my swan song." And she bursts from the grave. Sorry. She bursts from the grave, reborn and part robotic from the techno-organic virus the Phalanx gave her, and from the body that her and Chanktalar helped make together. And that ends our story. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Join us next week as we cover Spawn number 323 through 326. Thanks for watching. As always, remember to like, subscribe, and share our video to help spread our brand through the world. Also, feel free to leave a comment down below. Feedback is always welcome. Now, you can also find us on the Jabroni Nerd Facebook page, so give us a follow over there. So, until next week, guys, keep talking nerdy.